when the steam engine was being built a couple of hundred years ago, people thought that there's going to be explosions. There's going to be things that are going to be very dangerous for steam engines to be. And similarly, I think when people think about AI, they think about AI robots killing humans or taking over the world. But what happened with steam engines was that people didn't think about pollution at that time. And those are the things that actually were the problems that kind of came, and people have to go figure out how to solve these things. And similarly, I think one of the things with AI is that it's not necessarily the AI robots taking over the world. It's about these kind of misinformation that's actually going to be
Yeah,
spread. And how do you actually kind of figure out
deal with
what to
it.
trust and how do you kind of deal with it is going to be the real problem in this space.
Hello and welcome to another special episode of The Boss's Code. I have a special guest with me today who's been at the forefront of AI development for about 2 decades now, easily. Dwarak Rajagopal. He's been with Google and Meta, Uber and Apple, and now at Snowflakes, he leads the overall AI and ML operations and their research and development in that space. Dwarak, it's a pleasure connecting with you and glad to have you on the platform.
It's great to be here.
Great. So it's quite an interesting space that you're in, and given that your background, where you come from, through all your experiences at some of the big technology companies, what exactly is the area that you're filling at Snowflake? Could you give an idea of what your role entails? And you've been there for about a year plus now. So what's the gap that you've been filling there?
Yeah, maybe I'll start with why I joined Snowflake. Maybe that might be actually a good precursor to kind of say what I'm doing. I think Snowflake has is it wants to kind of help folks build from AI ingestion, from a data ingestion to insights. I think one of the key elements to do this is through data and AI mixing together. If you think about what happened in the last decade, over the last decade on AI, is a lot of foundational technologies have been improving quite a bit in terms of both large language models and in terms of how it actually understands the internet data and how it's been useful for kind of retrieving and kind of also completing things. One of the key elements that I see, which is kind of important for the AI to the next generation, for the next kind of innovation, is how does AI get in democratized into our enterprises? And one of the key elements there is to have where the enterprise data, what we have. Actually, if you think about the amount of important data which is there in enterprise, is actually more than the amount of data that is there, useful data that is there on the internet at this point. And so, how does AI kind of take advantage of that and provide actually services and value to our customers and to all the world? And so, one of the reasons why I joined Snowflake is that Snowflake is the AI data platform, and how does AI kind of help bring more value to our customers? And that's one of the key reasons why I thought Snowflake would be a great place for me to go and help on this front. Currently, I lead all of AI engineering and research at Snowflake, and the things that what we build ranges from giving the ability for our customers to go build models on top of Snowflake platform, on top of the Snowflake data, so that they don't have to take the data out. The key element here is how do you bring AI close to the data rather than taking data close to AI. The reason for this is that data, generally in the companies and enterprises, data are in very different places. You need to kind of understand that access control patterns. There are some data which is private within the company for certain users versus others. When you take this data out, the challenge is to kind of maintain all of these governance that comes with that. And so how do you, instead of taking the data out, how do you bring AI to data so that you could actually do all of these things in a very safe and governed way, so that folks can actually use this much more easily and appropriately as well.
Right. So you're dealing with roughly about 5,000 plus customers. What's the pattern do you see emerging from some of the either the queries that they're raising or some of the products that you're building for their use cases? Is there top 3 or 4 themes that you feel are becoming more relevant? Is that something you could
Yeah,
share about?
absolutely. So there are actually there are different kinds of customers in our segment. So there are some customers who actually build their own models on top of the data. to kind of do applications on top of it. So we provide a platform for them to go build, train their own models, and also deploy these models in a safe, secure manner for both themselves and for their customers. So that's one kind of area. The other type of customers are they want to actually use the frontier models. They want to use open source models onto their data. And so one of the things that what we provide with Cortex platform is the ability to kind of use frontier models, both OpenAI, Anthropic, as well as Gemini models on the same Snowflake platform. In addition to that, we also provide access to open source models, which we host ourselves, including DeepSeek, Qwen, Llama, and all of these other models as well. So the companies have the ability to kind of use these models on their data within Snowflake to build applications. Then there is other sets of users where they want to actually ask questions directly to the data that they have. And this could be two types of data actually here. One is the structured data, which is generally a very gold data that has been transformed. And the way that they want to ask is to actually ask in a natural language processing way, natural language way, where we have a Cortex analyst, which can convert actually natural language to SQL, which is a text to SQL programming. And we have a model that we use to kind of do this. So that's one way of customers actually asking questions. And the other way is basically asking the questions for our unstructured data. And we have an enterprise search product called Cortex Search, where you could ask questions to get answers from unstructured documents and things. And actually, the power also comes when these two actually can combine with each other in the sense that we have agents on top of these two set of platform services where users can ask a question and it can combine both structured and unstructured, orchestrate across these things, and kind of give you an answer. And so that's other type of users where they actually ask these kind of questions where they could get answers. And then we also have a Snowflake Intelligence, which is a AI/BI product across. It's an almost like an enterprise kind of ChatGPT in some sense, but uses data from your enterprise, from your structured data, from your unstructured data, have connectors across, and I was able to answer questions like, why is my sales down last week? And things like that. And it can also do dashboards, customized dashboards, based on what your questions are and what based on your user persona in a very safe and secure manner as well. And so that's the other kind of users. And then we have the fourth kind of users who are analysts who are actually our bread and butter users of Snowflake, where they write actually SQL code. And we are going to give them the power. We're giving them the power of using LLMs inside SQL. An example here would be, say, for example, a lot of our customers' call transcripts are actually stored in Snowflake. And sometimes they want to kind of understand these things. For example, over the last 2 months, what is my top 10 products which have the highest customer complaints? What is the sentiment for these top 10 products? Ideally, if you want to do this before, the users have to actually first convert audio to text and then write pipelines to kind of extract the information both on the product, which product it is, what kind of complaints that they have, and then kind of transform that into classifying that into whether it is a positive or a negative. If it's negative, kind of how do you sort this and then put it in a table, sort it in the top 10 and to get it to kind of do, and it takes multiple weeks and oftentimes multiple teams to get involved to do these things, including data science, data engineers, and of course, data analysts as well. What we do with AI SQL is to give this power to the analyst directly for them to actually call an LLM within the SQL code in one line. You can kind of do all of this stuff within a line. And so that is a huge power for our customers. So I would say these are like the different sets of users and customers and patterns that what we are seeing.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. And one of the things when you speak about the intelligence that you're building, like an enterprise intelligence, like you mentioned, the ChatGPT inside enterprise, how are you looking at the impact of, let's say, hallucination or biases, within the model? How are you kind of removing that from the model or spotting them? Is there some sort of method where you audit the responses, and is there a way for customers to know how much they can trust this information or what they should be doing about it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a super important one as well. I think one of the key elements here are there is multiple ways that we tackle this. One is first is the observability aspects of things. First, customers needs to know how are they actually seeing this? Is this something that they can trust or not? In many cases, right? So what we do is we have this aspect of verified queries. When an admin actually sets this up, the admins are given suggestions on these are the verified kind of queries and what is the SQL or the corresponding agent instructions that comes up. And the admins can actually verify these and kind of in the way we are setting up this whole thing is a very iterative process as well because initially the admin wants to kind of verify a few things and they are comfortable that this is the case. And once a query that matches with the verified query that comes for a business user, you actually have a very clear way for the business users to know whether this is a verified query or not. And we have like a shield icon within the Snowflake intelligence to kind of show that this is a verified query and that they can trust this. In some cases where there are like new questions that doesn't match verified queries, what happens is that we basically send periodically, daily in some sense, to the admins that these are the new questions that have come up. And these are the areas where the users have actually seen these questions. And sometimes the users can actually say like or dislike in terms of how they see the answers towards it. Once they see it, the admin has the choice of whether they want to add these things into verified queries or not. So that way you kind of constantly improve the the things that are already verified for the users to know that they are getting verified answers here and kind of you can trust this. So that is more um, from an observability perspective and a continuous improvement perspective. In addition to this, we also do kind of more technological stuff like using an LLM judge, using other things underneath the hood to kind of ground the data into the things that are specific to the customer, specific to the account, specific to the agent, and we have ways to kind of do this automatically, have automatic evals that also happens across the board for specific agents within the Snowflake intelligence as well. So there's a multiple combination of a few things that actually happens here.
From what I understand, is it also builds a separate database in itself of over the period of time, what kind of queries are coming and how you should make it a little more intelligent every other time. So it iterates on it and builds on top of that existing knowledge.
Absolutely. So that's one of the key elements where we want to continuously improve this. And the what are we doing more and more is to how do we kind of automatically give suggestions, automatically kind of pre-verify this so that the users can actually trust this and use it much more often and much more easily as well.
And you mentioned about customers also have the option to pick up on open source models and then try it on themselves instead of just the big ones that are available. So, from your experience over the last 2 decades, being in the space where a lot of open source and AI development is happening, how do you see the current state of open source development, particularly in AI? And very specifically after DeepSeek actually came into the picture, where you see an environment where the development that's happening in the US is becoming more closed system, while China is starting to be a little more open. So, what's your perspective on this, and how does this I mean, how will this emerge from here?
Yeah, so open source is definitely very critical for a lot of kind of elements, and the space is actually moving very fast. I think that obviously a lot of new models that have come, DeepSeek, Qwen, Kimi from the Chinese from the China is actually pretty positive in terms of how much of innovation is happening on the open source. I do think there is also like obviously Llama is something that which is kind of quite prevalent within US, and there are also other companies which are trying to build some of these open source models. And one of the key elements, what we do also within our building our own models for text to SQL is we actually do post training and RL on top of these open source models, which kind of helps you customize things much more easily. And also, for example, there is this always the tuner of quality and the size, and which basically determines the latency of the workloads. So having open source kind of gives you a base so that you could kind of tune your model for your specific use case. So I do think it is like a super critical way. I do, and the other thing that what at Snowflake what we believe is to give the users the choice. in terms of deciding what they want to use. And for example, one of the places where for the AI SQL, what we do is we actually use a combination of both open source as well as the closed frontier models. And the way it works is that for example, if you want to run an LLM query on top of a million of rows, what we do is we actually run the first 1,000 rows with a bigger model and then fine tune on the fly based on the user data to kind of build a customized smaller model that they could run the next million rows. So that way you could actually run things much more faster, much more cheaper, but also have this quite a bit of similar accuracy and quality as things. So there are multiple ways we actually use open source in combination with frontier models to kind of improve the experience for our users whenever the users actually prefer that. So I do think it is kind of important to have the open source innovation. I personally care a lot about open source. I've worked in open source projects in my past lives as well, and I do think it kind of helps having innovation and open innovation, especially in the areas of AI, is to kind of have a baseline where people can also work on things that are, example, security, governance, where understanding what happens underneath is like super important, and open source kind of helps that across the
Right.
space.
So one of the things, as somebody who's been following this sector for some time, I am a little in fear, I should say, that if it gets a little more, open source based. For instance, with the recent Gemini's Nano Banana Pro, you might have seen the kind of images that are coming out. You actually can have a little bit of a filter because it's coming out of Google, because they can actually adopt a certain level of standard. Beyond that, you cannot make something. But if some person were to develop something similar and it's open source and it's available to everybody, the kind of content that you can generate with this powerful tool is huge. So, and it can be devastating to certain people. So, how do we bring in both privacy and security into an environment where we're also trying to open source, but at the same time trying to give people the privacy and build a security into these systems?
Yeah, that is a very, very important question, and I think all of us have to think deeply about this. I think the key element here is that how do you kind of balance both open but also safety across the elements? One of the things that we really deeply care at Snowflake is even when we host our models, we host it within our own servers. We host in a way that there are filters on top of that, safety filters. We have a Cortex Guard that kind of prevents and kind of also supports, catches these things so that we give a unified experience. We give a safe experience for our users. But this is a very important area. And I do think this is an area, I don't think it can be also fixed by one company. It needs a whole set of companies and industries to do it. And one of the things that what we are trying to do across the space on the open source forum is, and for communities to come together to kind of build certain specific requirements in terms of how do you kind of move this in a very safe and secure way. This is a very hard problem, as you might have seen, and this is the kind of the places where I think I think the platform owners, the
Yeah,
platform providers have the responsibility to kind of take into account how they actually provide this safe and secure. And one of the things that what Snowflake actually kind of proud to be providing this for a variety of our companies and enterprises to have that ability to kind of provide that platform where they could do things more secure and safe way,
right.
but in a very customized way as well. So that's the kind of the balance we do.
Yeah, Jeffrey Hinton mentions a sort of a system where you can actually have provenance to you say that where it is coming from, but that's also limited to the company that makes those provenances. So you don't have a central clearing house sort of a thing where everything goes through that. So is there some kind of a coalition that's being formed, or any kind of discussions that's going around in this space?
Yeah, I think these are, I mean, one of the analogies that I've actually thought about is when the steam engine was being built a couple of hundred years ago, people thought that there's going to be explosions. There's going to be things that are going to like be very dangerous for steam engines to be. And similarly, I think when people think about AI, they think about AI robots killing humans or taking over the world. But what happened with steam engines was that people didn't think about pollution at that time, and those are the things that actually were the problems that kind of came, and people have to go figure out how to solve these things. And similarly, I think one of the things with AI is that it's not necessarily the AI robots taking over the world. It's about these kind of misinformation that's actually going to be
Yeah,
spread, and how do you actually kind of figure out
deal with
what to
it.
trust and how do you kind of deal with it is going to be the real problem in this space, in terms of how we see. And I think having, like I mentioned, having kind of platforms own some of these areas where they can trust and be the clearinghouse in some sense for some of these things is kind of responsibility for these bigger platforms. And then there is also the regulation aspects of things. I do think the way we think about this is that it needs to, I mean, sometimes regulating the field too early can also have problems. But again, we need like smart regulations and smart legislation to kind of
Right.
cover both being able to kind of innovate, but also do it in a very safe and a responsible way is going to be
Right.
important.
And the other thing is usually I'm trying to look at this in with the development in AI in parallel with what happened during the dot-com boom time. So back then there wasn't a lot of push to adopt the digital age or get into the internet. You didn't have that kind of a push. It was more a pull factor. People wanted to get in and then they built websites and they developed their brand around that. But with AI, it looks like as though there's a sort of a push on how you want to build agentic systems, but consultancies like McKinsey and BCGs, they say that the adoption is not actually giving a return on investment. So how do you see this parallel sort of, when the earlier time there was a pull effect, now it's the push effect, and maybe is that what is causing the problem on, how agentic AI will be consumed by corporations?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think my thought is that I think with AI there requires a change in the way we operate. So the difference, I think internet also has a change in the way it operated, but for most of the consumers or for most of the people, it was more of this is an easy way to go get information and kind of you can kind of use it for your lifestyle. For example, when Google search came, people were basically able to go search what they want, get answers, and use it. Um, and which to be honest, it also took some years for everybody to get evolved and use that and become a habit. In my opinion, AI is also in the similar category from a sense that it needs to be used within the workflow. What we did, at least one example, what we did within Snowflake is the aspect of using Snowflake within Snowflake. This is basically one of the key elements what we did when we introduced Snowflake Intelligence. We basically dogfooded our own Snowflake Intelligence within our own company, basically building a sales agent for our GTM. So we have about 8,000 people in the company, about 6,000 folks who are able to use these products almost every day to ask a question. For example, when they go meet a customer, hey, what do I need to understand about this customer? What are the current POCs that are happening with the customer? Asking these questions much more easily and get information. The key element is how do you embed AI into your everyday workflow? I think once you start doing that, it actually what we see is once you start doing that, there is a big difference by doing just POCs and in a silo. For AI, you can do demos, you can do things very easily, but the problem was how do you kind of productionize this? It's a big kind of cliff when you go from POC to productionization. The key element here is instead of doing POC in a siloed play, take a specific everyday workflow thing that each person is doing and figuring out how to kind of automate or help with AI, augment. I would say automate or augment depending on the use case. How do you kind of use that within the workflow and kind of slowly, incrementally bring this is kind of the way that I think my prediction is how it's going to actually happen. It's not going to be like a day, hey, everything is going to be done by AI. You just write a prompt and you can go home. That's not how it's going to kind of evolve. It's going to be much more interactive and much more embedded within each workflow. And for example, I'm a software engineer, and one of the things about what you see over the last year is how AI has been helping software engineers with products like Cursor, Claude Code, and things where basically it is not like you just say a prompt and go home. It's more like you kind of give a prompt, get results, adjust your things, kind of do a very iterative way. And that kind of improves the productivity for our software engineers generally. So I do see this as very embedded and takes time. The other analogy I worked personally in my previous life. I used to work at Uber, working on self-driving cars about 2016, and self-driving cars actually worked fine in some sense that time in a setting where in a very close setting where things actually worked fine generally. The challenge happens to get it to production is to combine both humans drivers as well as self-driving car drivers, and that takes time because again we think about AI as a separate thing. I think what we need to think about AI is how does it actually help humans and how does it work with human workflows, and that's a key element, and that's the big challenge that all of our companies are actually trying to solve. And once you kind of do, and I don't think this is going to be a zero or one, it's going to be very incremental. And I do think it will take time, but it's actually, at least from my experiences, what we see when we do it in a way that is actually embedded, we see a lot of huge kind of return of investments, both within Snowflake and also we see within our customers using that methodology as
Right,
well.
right. Yeah, that's interesting. And then that actually takes me to the whole idea of talent. What's talent going to be? What do you see would be the skill in the most important skill set that is needed? And also, what is one thing that will become superbly redundant that we shouldn't be doing? So, if you could give a brief on that, and
Yeah,
in within that question, if you could give an idea of where is India really placed in the overall AI ecosystem? Are we going to be more of the consumers of AI tools, or are we going to build something new from our own, from your perspective?
sounds good. Yeah, I think let me again start because I'm a software engineer. Let me start thinking, like giving from that sense, how AI is going to kind of change the world in some sense on that front. The way I think about, if you think about software engineering, about half a century ago, the software engineering was basically punching cards. That's kind of how software engineering was at that time. Then we went into writing assembly, which is much more lower level. There were very few people who were able to do that at that time. And then there came like more lower level programming languages. Then we had C, which is much more lower language. And whenever we go from punch cards to assembly to C to higher level languages like Java, then Python, the amount of people actually able to do this actually increased in kind of multiple X, if you think about it. And what I see a kind of transition towards that is now the software, the programming language is going to be more your own language. It could be English, Indian languages, Hindi, Tamil, whatever. And so what I see is it kind of democratizes the use of computers for your own kind of benefit. So I do think software engineering is going to be democratized over and over again. So what I see is the same thing kind of applies in other areas as well, where AI is going to make people have access to better things or more things that they were not thinking that they could have access to. So this is going to be a much bigger kind of improvement for everyone from a if you think about internet where it gave access to the world knowledge in some sense, AI kind of gives you access to a lot of these different skills across these different fields. And I think what is kind of important is the I don't I think it's more about the attitude than skill in my opinion. It's about the attitude, kind of trying things, being very iterative, using things is the one that is going to actually be super helpful. In terms of obviously like some of the, even on the software engineering side, I think writing tests is something people don't generally like, and you can now get like AIs to kind of do those things while you kind of monitor and kind of do these things. So it's about how do you kind of use AI as a tool to kind of improve your workflow and having the ability to kind of do these things, try these things. And one of the key element here is that the foundational technologies are going to continuously improve. And so I kind of understanding that and building on top of that is going to be important as well. So that way you get for free when things improve, your whole platform and things also improve significantly. And we do that within Snowflake as well. Like some of the things that what we built are built on assuming that the foundation models are going to improve. So we do a lot more post-training, RL on top of that, so that some of these improvements will actually carry on even when things actually improve as well.
Right. One last thing on, just basically trying to understand this. there is a talk, among a set of people within the AI community about the shift in a different architecture. Should we go beyond the transformer? So Sakana AI, that you might know, based out of Japan, they're building something like the continuous thought machines, thinking machines. So what's your view on, building something that is a completely new architecture in the world of AI? Because you've seen these architectures developing the CNNs and RNNs, and then we came all the way to transformers. So, do you feel when, or what would be the right time when there would be a switch in the architecture when this kind of maxes out?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think there is going to be more architectural improvements, architectural innovations that's going to happen. There is, I mean, we've like for example, Transformers One. We have also like the diffusion-based models as well. I do think one of the key elements that I think uh, the AI, the transformers, or the way we do AI is that how does it continuously improve things while it's used? Right now, it's more like a snapshot, and then it uses a set of tools to go use these things. For example, like most of the ChatGPT or other things access internet through a web search tool in some sense. But in terms of how does it continuously improve, the weights actually don't change continuously as we use, for example. So I think there could be things like that where, as if you think about humans, we actually continuously improve based on our experiences, and that's something that I think some of these architecture improvements, I would say, to kind of solve some of these things would be very. I do think that's going to be some of the exciting things that's going to happen in the coming years, and
Great.
really looking forward.
Great. On that note, Dwarak, thanks so much for taking the time and sharing your thoughts on what's happening in Snowflake and what's happening in the world of AI, and also specifically about open source. And hopefully, we can find a solution to this provenance and trying to get some kind of safety into AI that we're building. Thanks so much for your time, Dwarak.
Thank you.